This is draft season. Happy draft day, everybody. John Schmelk, Tony Pauline. It is still draft day. We're recording this around 11:40. The hour has not told yet to Friday. First round is in the books, Tony. And I think as we talked about, some surprises in there. A little bit of an unpredictable day one of the draft. Maybe not as crazy as I thought. A bunch of trades at the end of the first round, which is, not surprising. But overall, a fun night one of the NFL draft.
And it went quick.
Yeah.
I mean, it started at 8 o'clock. It was over by 11-ish. Had good flow to it. It was smooth. And, except for maybe one player, the top 10 was filled with the players we thought it would be filled with. And to our credit, we had basically, except for one player, which was a surprise, the top 5 pan out, which really would have seemed crazy the way it did just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't want to, hurt myself patting ourselves on the back here, Tony, but when we did our final mock draft, and I'm going to bring it up here so I have it in front of me, on our show on Wednesday on draft season for the people that watched it, we sat there and we talked about different options and possibilities, and we went through the picks, and Arvell Reese got to the Giants at 5, and that's just kind of how it went, and it ended up working out perfectly where he got the 5. The Giants picked him. And I think as we look at these first 4 picks, Mendoza not a surprise, Bailey not a surprise, Love not a surprise. The surprise came at number 4 when the Titans took Carnell Tate, and that gave the options the choice between which Ohio State linebacker they wanted. And funny enough, what have we both been saying through this whole process? We see Arvell Reese as a better off-ball linebacker than we do an edge player. And what did John Harbaugh and Joe Shane say in their press conferences? We see him as an off-ball linebacker to play next to Tremaine Edmonds. So I think they're going to use him the same way Ohio State did, a part-time pass rusher, but a full-time linebacker. And that top 5 ended up going exactly like we thought in our final mock.
Well, and I had a back and forth with somebody on Twitter when I released my own mock 2-round draft. If I'm a little tongue-tied, I'm sorry. I've been on the live stream since 7 o'clock.
It's been a long night, Tony. It's been a long night.
I went back and forth with somebody on Twitter who said, why would the Giants draft an edge rusher? It's like, he's not an edge rusher. He is a terrific off-ball linebacker who can rush the passer. I mean, he was a projection as an edge rusher. First thing is, I think it went the way it did because of the Jets taking David Bailey at 2, which really we talked about. I reported it earlier in the week, and that's the way it went. Is that the best pick for the Jets? In my opinion, Arvell Reese would have been the better selection because he's more scheme versatile. David Bailey is a good 3-4 outside pass rusher. He's going to give the team immediate impact, which is what they need.
Yeah, Tony, I'll put it this way. Bailey a better pass rusher, Arvell Reese a better football player. I think that's the way I would change it.
Well, the other thing is this is Arvell Reese is going to have a much easier time rushing the passer and becoming a edge rusher than David Bailey will playing off the ball, playing in space, playing in coverage. And then never mind the fact that, there's a significant growth difference. I mean, Arvell Reese is a bigger player. Jeremiah Love was not a surprise. As I had written in my mock draft, there were rumors that the owner wanted Jeremiah Love. But, I mean, Carnell Tate, shocking in so many ways. I mean, with Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles still on the board, Robert Saleh, the head coach, everything pointed to the Titans taking a defensive player at that slot. And then they take Carnell Tate. And I got to tell you, I'm not a betting man, but what were the odds a week ago, a day ago, 2 weeks ago that Carnell Tate was going to be the first Ohio State player selected in the 2026 draft? And in a lot of ways, I like Carnell Tate. This just kind of reeks of Corey Davis to me. If you remember when the Titans took Corey Davis out of Western Michigan, made him a top 5 pick. In my opinion, I like Carnell Tate, but it was just a reach with the available talent available to the Titans. All three Ohio State players. You want to throw Ruben Bain in there. You want to throw Mansour Delane in there. Very strange selection.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, you want to help the quarterback, and I get that. You have Cam Ward. Look, their wide receivers are not good. So I understand wanting to add a wide receiver, but they ended up trading into the back end of the first round, Tony, at the end. And I guess we'll jump ahead here just because it's the same team. There were a million trades here at the end of the first round. So they jump back in at 31, select Keldrick Falk. They could have just taken Denzel Boston there, right? They could have got Denzel Boston at 31, or if you like, any other play, Jeremy Bernard, if you like him, whatever wide receiver you would have liked after Cooper, Concepcion in the top three, you could have gotten them right there at 31, and they get Falk instead. So I think if you look at it, it would have made more sense to go defense at 4 and then try to get the wide receiver with that next pick.
Especially with the defensive talent. Now, Keldrick Falk, I think they traded up to get him because I had been reporting that the Seattle Seahawks liked Keldrick Falk. And I think I knew the Seahawks liked two players, Jadarian Price and Keldrick Falk. They trade the Titans traded up to get him. How does he fit there? I mean, they basically play a 4-man line, Robert Saleh. He likes to stand his guys up over tackle. They got, they traded for Jermaine Johnson. They got Oladeju, who they drafted last year. I like Falk. I just don't like the fit here. I thought it was a strange move.
All right, we talked about number 5 for the Giants selecting Arvell Reese. Right. Then we got the Chiefs trading up from 9 to 6, Tony, and I thought it was going to be for the wide receiver, right? Because Carnell Tate's off the board. They wanted to make sure they got their wideout. The Saints were rumored to be interested in a wideout at 8. The Commanders, though I think Sonny Styles, once he was there, they were going to pick him. They were rumored to be interested in a wide receiver. But it turns out they weren't trading up for Jordan Tyson. They traded up for Mansour Delane.
I thought for sure it was going to be Reuben Bain. I projected this trade in my mock draft, and I had them trading up for Reuben Bain. Mansour Delane, hands down, is the best cornerback in this draft.
Oh, I like Delane. I think it's a good pick.
Delane, I'm sorry. Mansour Delane, best cornerback in this draft. I apologize. I think his value went up with the Gerard McCoy injury, and McCoy was not selected at any point in the draft tonight. I just, they traded Trent McDuffie. They got a late first-round pick for it. And then you come back and you move up to get Mansour Delane. I would rather just pay McDuffie the money, although I know they've got a bunch of guys to pay there with Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes. He's a terrific cornerback, and they've got to rebuild that secondary considering the losses, some of them self-inflicted, like trading Trent McDuffie, that they've gone through this offseason.
Yeah, it makes sense. Look, I think Delane's a good pick there. So Washington and Dan Quinn and Sonny Styles fall on their lap at 7. Yep. That's an easy pick and a good pick for them. Jordan Tyson, he'll play across from Chris Olave for the Saints at 8. I think that makes sense. Spencer Fano, we had him going to the Browns at 6 in our mock draft. He ends up going to the Browns at 9. Not a surprise. And then you get the tackles back-to-back. Francis Mauigoa. Giants could have drafted Caleb Downs. I know a lot of Giant fans were like, oh, we got both of them. We got Downs and Reese. That would have been great. But, Tony, look, and I said this on our reaction show, which you can find on all the Giants podcast platforms and YouTube channel, all that stuff. Never get mad about taking a good offensive lineman in the top 10. You could put him in at guard. He's going to be really good there. When Illuminor's contract's up, you can slide him out to tackle. You got to protect Jackson Dart. The Giants have no interior offensive lineman under contract past this season. You needed to help that group. You can never have enough good offensive linemen. No one loves Caleb Downs more than I do, but I will never be upset about adding a good player to your offensive line.
Well, I would agree with that. We're going to have to see how Mauigoa plays compared to Caleb Downs. But, again, you don't want to go into the season with Daniel Falele and Evan Neal at the right guard position. So I was leaning towards Caleb Downs, but I understand why they made this selection.
I do. Anything you have on Styles or Tyson that you think was interesting?
I mean, Styles was the pick that Dan Quinn wanted. And when Jeremiah Love was off the board and Mansour Delane was off the board, it made the most sense. Tyson, we'll see. We did our show tonight with Max Brown, and I asked Max Brown outright about the injuries. He said, hamstring injuries are soft tissue injuries, and often it means that the player's not doing the right things off the field. He's not properly conditioning himself. We'll see what happens. But a couple of people I've spoken with have said that injury, is a bit of a concern, especially how it lingered on. Great receiver. Again, I didn't think any of these receivers were worth the top 10 selections, and 2 of them go. They're going to have to pay Chris Olave a lot of money real soon. If it pans out for him and they give Olave the extension, they've got a tremendous duo at receiver for their young quarterback the next 5 years.
All right, so let's go to pick number 11. The Dolphins make the Cowboys pay a toll to move up one spot with, I think it's their 2 compensatory fifth-round picks, if I'm not mistaken, at the end of the 5th round, to move up one spot to get Caleb Downs. Boy, I don't think you could have a better fit in Christian Parker's defense. to then Caleb Downs. I think he's going to be fantastic there. And as someone that's going to have to watch him play against the Giants now, I'm not very happy about it. But Caleb Downs to the Dolphins at number 11. Then the Dolphins select Caden Proctor. Maybe a little bit of a surprise at 12, but look, they're a team that's focusing on 2027 and beyond, Tony, so they pick a guy with a lot of upside. I think it makes sense. And then, well, why don't we talk about those two first, but before we get to the biggest surprise of the draft, because I want to spend a little bit of time on that.
Well, I think the Cowboys were. It's interesting. The Cowboys take Caleb Downs. I love Caleb Downs. We had thought that if the Cowboys did not trade into the top 10, they would get locked out of all the top defensive players. Yep. They had their choice between Caleb Downs and Reuben Bain. And everybody thought that they needed the edge rusher. They go with Caleb Downs, and they traded up one spot to get him. So
now, historically, Tony, Dallas has not liked short-armed defensive ends. So my guess is that's probably why.
Well, that's why we'll talk about the guy they took, later on in the first round. Caden Proctor, can play right tackle, can play right guard. They have a left tackle there. We'll see where they move him around. He had been moving up draft boards. Proctor was a guy I loved coming into the season. He played relatively well in spots this year. We're still a little concerned about that weight. Want to see him get down to the 330s. We'll see what happens.
By the way, draft season presented by Moody's, a proud partner of the New York Giants. Decode risk, unlock opportunity, learn more at Moody's.com. I'm coming to you from the Giants podcast studio presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. All right, Tony, then the surprise of the draft at 13. Yeah. It doesn't surprise me that the Rams drafted Ty Simpson.
No.
I was surprised that the Rams drafted Ty Simpson at the 13th overall pick in the draft with Kenyon Sadiq on the board, with Mekhi Lemon on the board, pick your offensive tackle that's on the board. So many guys that could have helped them today and in the future, and they go with the quarterback. Man, surprised.
I had Ty Simpson mocked to the Los Angeles Rams when the Los Angeles Rams had 2 first-round picks.
Right.
And that second one was their own pick late before they made the trade for Trent McDuffie. I thought that was the way they were going to go. Pick 13, I mean, they're built to win for today. You talked about how the Dolphins are not looking to 2026. Well, the Rams are, and they need players on the field to get them to the next level, to get them over the hump. Ty Simpson's not going to do it. Listen, I think Ty Simpson's in a great spot. He doesn't have to play. There are a lot of things about his game I like. I think with John McVay there and everything, I think it's a great spot, a great position for him. And obviously, we questioned his choice to enter the draft. Obviously, it's the right one because he's going to get paid mid-first round money, and he's going to be able to learn and take some time. I just wonder about the Rams. Because they could have gotten an extra piece to really make a Super Bowl push. And that piece wasn't Ty Simpson.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tony. Venga Ioane to the Ravens. This has kind of been a very chalky pick that we've talked about a lot. Not a surprise. Reuben Bain Jr. to the Tampa Bay Bucks. I'm sure they're thrilled. They need an edge rusher that he dropped to them at 15. I think a really good value add for them. And then the Jets at 16 over the wide receiver. A year after they drafted Mason Taylor on day 2, they go Kenyon Sadiq. So I guess we're going to see a lot of 12 personnel out of the Jets next year, huh?
And he's a guy that can stretch the field. I think he's great value here. I
agree. Great value.
Buccaneers could have selected him. I thought that maybe Carolina was going to trade up to grab him. I thought the Jets would have broached moving down, which I know was a conversation piece, and a lot of people were telling me. But listen, Sadiq is a great athlete who's also developing into a great football player. He's not just a guy who won the underwear Olympics at the combine with the 4.39 and the 41.5-inch vertical jump. He plays to that speed. And again, as I've said time and time on this podcast, he was a much better player in November and December than he was in September and October. His game just continually developed. And you're right. They'll put 2 tight ends on the field. Sadiq is the guy that's going to stretch it down the field. Mason Taylor can run the underneath routes. Just got to hope that Geno Smith can find one of them and get the ball to him.
All right, we'll try to do 3 picks at a time here, because I think it'll give us a chance to talk about everybody. Blake Miller, not a surprise. Lions needed an offensive tackle to replace Taylor Decker. They'll move Sewell to the left side. Blake Miller will plug in at the right side. A little rich for me. But yeah, I think he'll step in and he'll start and he'll be fine. Now, this is a surprise, Tony. Caleb Banks to the Vikings at 18. I remember I was trying to sell you during our mock that maybe a team would take the chance on the upside. I was thinking of like 29 or 30. I was not thinking about 18 here, man. That's a surprise.
I thought both of these picks were strange and they were reaches. I mean, Blake Miller to me, people fell in love with him. I saw him at best as an early second round choice. You think late first round? I guess they obviously are moving Penei Sewell to left tackle, and they're
I
going
had
to
a
put
second round grade on him too, Tony. I'm with you. He was a second round player for me also.
yeah, Blake Miller on the right side. I just thought this was way too early. Caleb Banks, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, this was a reach of all reaches as far as I'm concerned. Comes into the season with a second round grade. People think he can play himself into the first round. He only played 3 games because of the foot injury. He goes to the Senior Bowl, and we were both there. I mean, he flashed, but he didn't dominate a week at the Senior Bowl. Then he re-injures the foot at the combine, and people are talking, well, he's going to be ready for June 1st. This is a man that's had 2 foot injuries in the past 6 months. He's 330 pounds, and he's taken with the 18th pick of the draft. I would have taken, if I wanted a defensive tackle, I would have gone to Caden McDonald here, who fell out of the first round. We'll have to wait and see. Strange pick to me. A reach. I thought it was a reach all the way.
And ahead of Monroe Freeling, who went to the Panthers at 19. Mekhi Lemon to the Eagles in a trade up with the Cowboys. Second time in 5 years, I think. Right. I'm trying to remember when the Devontae Smith trade was. I think that was 5 years ago, right? When they did the Parsons Devontae Smith trade. The Eagles trade up with Dallas. They select Mekhi Lemon. And now you got to assume that A.J. Brown's out the door, right? And Mekhi Lemon, different type of receiver, but he'll replace him. Max Ionator to the Steelers. They needed a tackle. That makes sense. And then Akeem Mesidor to the Chargers. They needed an edge player. I think that makes sense for them there.
The Panthers pick was a little bit strange in the sense that, what's his Ikwanu is going to be out for a while, but they did sign Rasheed Walker.
Right.
They drafted Monroe Freeling, who's a natural left tackle.
Taylor Moton's still a good right tackle.
What are they going to do with Freeling? I mean, are they going to try and develop Freeling into a right tackle? Are they going to move him to left tackle and then move Ikwanu into guard when he comes back from the injury? I just thought that was a very strange pick. Mekhi Lemon, obviously, they got to get ready for the departure of A.J. Brown. Ionator, is he going to start a tackle? Is he going to start a guard? I don't care. I love the guy. I've said time and time again, I think he will be the best offensive tackle 2 or 3 years down the road to come from this draft. Mesidor, I guess they're expecting him to start right away. I thought maybe Besantis at this spot because they needed an offensive guard, but they also needed an edge rusher.
All right, and let's go into the next group here, Tony. We'll do a couple more at a time here as we want to wrap this up. We got to get to bed. Tomorrow's going to be a long day, too. Malachi Lawrence to the Cowboys at 23. Little rich for me. He's a second-round player to me, but you're betting on upside with his testing and his length and all that stuff. Remember, he's an older player, though, too. I think he's already 23. So that's something that they're going to have to figure out if they can really develop him into the player that he could be, not that he is right now. Browns get their wide receiver, Casey Concepcion. Dylan Thieneman, Bears need a safety. I think they get the second best one in the draft there at 25. Good pick. And then, look, the Texans needed offensive line. They draft Keelan Rutledge. He ends up being the first card off the board.
Lawrence is a system fit. He's a long, thin, explosive pass rusher. That can come out of a three-point stance. It's got to get a little bit bigger. He's got to be more productive. The production in Central Florida wasn't that great. I had Casey Concepcion mocked to the Browns. I think it's a great pick for a variety of ways. Takes the top off the defense. Great route runner. Great running after the catch. Brings explosion and productivity as a return specialist. Needs to shore up his hands. I thought that was an outstanding selection. Same thing with Dylan Thieneman. I thought maybe Caden McDonald could have gone here. But still, Thieneman is an explosive safety, very good against the run. Going to be interesting to see if they use him as a traditional, high free safety center fielder, or they use him in a 2-deep zone. Kalen Rutledge was a guy I've been writing about that could go in the late first round. He went a little bit earlier than I thought, but they needed a right guard. And he's not really big. He's not super athletic, but he's just a phenomenal football player. He's a great interview. And if you talk, I think you said it. The players who went against him at the Senior Bowl just raved about how explosive he was, how he went hard on every down. So he's a guy that I think is going to be starting week 1.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he will too. All right, let's run out the rest of this. Houston, by the way, traded up to that pick at 26 to select Rutledge with the Bills. Then the Bills traded down again from 31 to the Titans. So they didn't even have a first-round pick, but they needed extra picks in the DJ Moore trade, so I think that made sense for them. The Patriots traded up from 31 to 28. They select Caleb Lomu. The Dolphins trade up to 27 first. I missed them. Sorry. Chris Johnson from San Diego State. He ends up being the second quarterback off the board. My guy, I'm so proud, Tony. People have finally gotten on board the Chris Johnson bandwagon with me. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're a little late, but that's okay. So 27 Miami trade up for Johnson. 28 Patriots trade up for Caleb Lomu. Kansas City stay put. Selected Peter Woods out of Clemson. He gets into the first round. 2 swings on defensive tackles there. And then the Jets trade back into the first round for Omar Cooper Jr. to give weapons to Geno Smith. Keldrick Falk, we mentioned that before. Titans trade up, and then Jadarian Price to the Seahawks with the last pick in round number 1.
Yeah, I think Chris Johnson was a guy a lot of people thought was going to go earlier. He's got great upside. The Dolphins need a lot of help in the secondary. I think he's a guy who could start early on. Caleb Lemieux was interesting. I mean, is he going to play guard? Are they going to move Will Campbell in the guard? If they move Will Campbell in the guard, what does that say about their selection last year, taking Will Campbell with the 4th pick of the draft? And I think Caleb Lemieux is going to need a little bit of time before he's NFL ready. He's got to get stronger. Peter Woods was a bit of a strange pick to me with some of the receivers that were left on the board. I know they got to add talent in there, but again, Cade McDonald falls out. I would have taken McDonald over Peter Woods. I thought the Jets' move to move up and get Omar Cooper was masterful. They like Cooper, but they liked him in the second round. They move up three picks. They give away a 5th-round choice, and now you've got the 5th-year option on Omar Cooper. So it makes a ton of sense rather than sitting there and hoping he falls to you with the first pick of round 2. Keldrick Falk, we talked about. Jadarian Price, I knew all along Seattle liked him. I wrote about that a bunch at Essentially Sports. They like to rotate their backs in Seattle, and I think that's what you need to do with Jadarian Price. He's got a ton of upside. Also an exceptional pass catcher out of the backfield, which is going to fit well in that offense.
I'm with you, Tony. All right, let's look real quick here at the guys left on the board as we look ahead to round 2 as people listen to this on Friday very quickly. But first, a reminder, draft season is presented by Moody's, a proud partner of the New York Giants, uniting the brightest minds to turn today's risk into tomorrow's opportunities. Learn more at Moody's.com. All right, I'm looking at my board here, so pardon me for looking down, folks. So let's see. The only guys I have left, Tony, that kind of had borderline first round, second round grades. I know I had them higher than you did. I got Denzel Boston in that group. Jermon McCoy, obviously, depending on what the people think of the knee. TJ Parker still on the board. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren still on the board. And Cassius Howell. Those are the guys that I had left that have bottom first, top of the second round grades for me. But then I got a million guys with second round grades that are still left, obviously. But those are the top 5 guys for me. And Colton Hood would be the next guy in Caden McDonald for guys that are left on the board that I think people would be really excited about.
I had Cade McDonald. I also had Avion Terrell, but he fell because of the hamstring in the 440 time. TJ Parker, Colton Hood, Cassius Howell, Zion Young was another guy.
Yep.
And CJ Allen, who I think is going to come off the board quickly. You know, you wonder if the Buffalo Bills are even going to make a pick in the 2026 draft, but they need linebackers. And I think that they felt that if you continually trade down, those linebackers that they need, off-ball linebackers, would be better value in round 2 than in round 1. And in moving down, they can collect extra draft capital.
Yeah, I mean, that's about it.
Chase
Everyone
Besantis,
else.
I think I'm sorry. I had a second round grade on Chase Besantis. I'm still a bit surprised he didn't go in the first round, considering what I had heard, and that Keelan Rutledge went what's going to turn out to be way ahead of Chase Besantis.
And just remember, folks, that a lot of trades often in the top of round 2. Teams go to bed, look at their boards, they get all excited about guys that are left, and then they try to move up to get those guys. So, Tony, final thoughts before we say goodbye.
Oh, I think you and I did a good job in the top 10. There was
I think we did too.
Obviously, with the at the receivers. I mean, there weren't any huge reaches. You can't say, except for maybe Caleb Banks and Blake Miller going earlier than we thought.
Well, Ty Simpson.
Well, yes, but he's a quarterback, though. And quarterbacks are always overdrafted. I didn't see. I mean, I didn't have Caleb Lemieux as a first-round pick, but he was in the 40s on my board. So I didn't see many reaches. I thought the trades, although there were a ton of trades, they went off quickly and they went off very well. Overall, I really enjoyed it tonight. There was good tempo. It was easy to speak about. And once the Jets selected David Bailey, things kind of fell into place, sort of like Plan B, as opposed to just taking Avril Reese the way we thought it would happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I gotta be honest with you, Tony. Those trades happen so fast at the end of the draft. I need to go back and figure out who's actually picking at the top of the second round because I have no idea right now who actually has any of these picks. I need to figure that out. I know the Jets and the Titans don't, so I think the Bills are in one of those spots. I don't know who's in the other one. What, Miami? No, they moved up. The Niners, I think. I think the Niners are in one of those spots, right? And the
Yes.
Bills are in the other one, I think. So I'll figure that out by tomorrow. Everybody, thanks for joining us on Draft Season, presented by Moody's, a proud partner of the New York Giants in the Hackensack Marine Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. Tony and I will be back when we record a full draft wrap-up. We'll kind of go team by team and analyze what each team did. We'll record that on Saturday night. It'll get posted on Sunday at some point. So make sure you check that out. And for continuing coverage of the Giants draft, tune in to Giants.com, the Giants YouTube channel. We'll have our normal show tomorrow at 12:30. Big Blue Kickoff Live. We'll come on live when the Giants pick in round, or at the start of round 2 tomorrow at around 7 o'clock. And then we'll be live when the Giants pick in round 4 at the start of day 3 of the draft at noon on Saturday. Tony, Essentially Sports, what do you got?
We're going to be doing a live stream show on day 2 of the draft. So that's going to be another 5-hour escapade, which should be a lot of fun. We'll have some more inside news. And then I'm sure there's going to be a lot of reviews, some useless reviews because it's only on paper now, but those are always fun. And, eventually you and I will look ahead to 2027.
Yes, that will be our last episode, which will come either end of next week or the beginning of the following week. Tony and I have to figure out when we're going to have time to get our act together with those 2027 players and figure out where they are on the board. Give us a little time and a little grace on that, folks. We would appreciate it. For Tony Pauline, I'm John Schmelk. When you're done with our draft live stream tomorrow from like 7 to 8, make sure you tune into Tony's over at Essentially Sports. For Tony Pauline, I'm John Schmelk. That's Draft Season presented by Moody's, a proud partner of the New York Giants. We'll see you next time.